Shalom. It says it's adding. We let my brother get in this building. It'd be a beautiful. Oh, we got him in the building. Yes, all praises. Yes.
Yeah.
How you doing, brethren?
We are on.
Yes. We are on live on our Facebook. We are on live on our YouTube. And we're about to go live on Hebrew State of Being. Oh, we got a great show for everybody. That's right, Oba. We got a great show for them tonight, huh?
Oh, it's gonna be amazing.
Yes.
It's gonna be amazing, y'all.
Yes, it is.
It's time for folks to really come to grips with this side of the world. You know, like I'm just learning that, corn is indigenous to this Western hemisphere.
Yeah.
And then reading that much in the scripture about corn, it's like
really?
Does anybody else think about that?
It's like when you read.
Or was it just like, oh, it's just corn? It's just corn.
It's like corn is so amazing that it leaves you not to know where to start in this conversation, right?
Wow.
Like you said, the simplicity of corn. The simplicity of corn. We would have no idea that it does all that it does and that it leads back to our people in the way that it does.
Yeah.
Who knew?
One of the most mass-produced things.
One of those mass-produced things. Speaking of mass-produced.
Scripture is one of those,
Yeah. Speaking of mass-produced, we got a video tonight that's going to truly talk about how corn has been genetically modified to the umpteenth, right? I'm gonna let them tell it themselves, so y'all don't think I'm sitting up here holding a torch, right? But let me say, throughout this thing tonight, the Hebrew mansion, right? The Hebrew kingdom that we broadcast from is in Holly Grove. So you're gonna hear a lot of gunshots tonight. I just want y'all to be. They have been going off tonight in Holly Grove. I don't know if we got 223s. I don't know if they shotguns. I don't know if they bazookas. I don't know if they are fireworks. But goodness gracious, they are getting it in. So if y'all hear the occasional boom, I'm okay. Everything's all right. They are just in celebratory mode tonight out in Holly Grove. So as we said, let's welcome everybody. So we got a couple people in. Sharonda's in the building. Evelyn's in the building. My brother Keith Pittman is in the building. Yes, love to see that. My brother Richard. Yeah, Pina. Yes. So just to kind of get you guys up to speed, if you didn't catch our first show, right? Corn, we did on Sabbath. We went in conclusively, and showed that corn is the oldest crop. And when they speak about crop in the ancient times, and they speak about wheat or grain, 9 times out of 10, they are talking about corn or wheat. The difference between wheat and corn is that wheat grows wild. Corn has to be planted. There's no other way it can be mass produced or grow game. And we prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that corn is indigenous to the Americas. Nowhere else.
Ooh, that's a lot of data.
That's a lot of data.
Places, but it's indigenous to here.
Just like corn is small and doesn't seem like it's a big thing, so is its story. The fact that it cannot grow wild, the fact that it's indigenous to America, and the third fact is that you find it in every single ancient culture known to man.
Images.
So swallow that. I want y'all to breathe that in. And welcome to the Hebrew state of being. We are your humble host and servants for the night. I am Kyle.
And I am Oba.
Yes, in the building. So, we are at part 2 of our journey of corn and going back and following the tracks of corn. Tonight, since we started out knowing that corn is a crop that was given by God, and that's what the Asians said, that's how they referred to the crop, that's how the Egyptians referred to the crop. We also proved that when you go back to Genesis, that in the time of the famine, when Joseph saved Egypt, it was because of the corn in America that he brought to Egypt. So yes, adding 2 plus 2, that means Joseph came to North America. The biblical Joseph came to America.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, if the Pharaoh knew about the corn beforehand, then would we have a story of Joseph? Who
Well, it's
knows?
not impossible that a pharaoh wouldn't know what's going on, because we got pharaohs with dog heads on that are from this side of the world.
Right.
So there's communication.
You know, when you
Not
look
shocked about that part.
when you look at their god system of Egypt and understand something, be very clear. Every black person that's in Egypt that's saying, Egyptologist that's saying that the Greeks stole all of their gods, they're not lying. It is absolutely true. All of the Greek gods that are now in our present day gods all came from the Egyptian gods. Yeah, facts. Absolute facts. Now,
Yes, indeed.
when we understand that Hercules, Mercury, Zeus, Hermes, all of these people have a counterpart or came from an Egyptian god. Now, as my brother just said, that the dog Anubis, which is their god of the underworld that brings them to death, right? That helps them navigate through the Nile of death so that they can get into their afterworld, right? It's a dog that's from Mexico. It's indigenous to Mexico. It's a Chicote. It's the name of the dog, Chicote.
Yes.
It is the hairless black dog. Yeah, that's the
Happens to be
Egyptian.
a black dog. Maybe, maybe that's a coincidence too.
Coinkadinks. We gotta.
You take the dog head in the corn. Okay.
So
Moving forward.
let's So we don't want to move too fast with this because this video is gonna show what they did with the corn once they found it. So tonight we're gonna do this short video where they're gonna explain what they did to the corn once they found it. Then we're gonna go into what corn actually did for you before they found it. Seems pretty simple, right? Seems simple. Everybody's on board. All right, we're gonna get our camera work going and flip our cameras. Yeah, because y'all gonna love this. Yes, y'all are.
This video is going to be awesome, guys. You got to learn about this corn. Where is it from? Why is it spoken about 102 times in Scripture?
Why? How? You know?
How? Why would you talk about something 102 times? 96 times in the Old Testament
Alone. So here we go, guys. This is off of the gentleman that I told you guys about to look up if you wanted to go further into what corn was from the information that we gave you biblically. So he had a 4-part series on it. Again, his name is spelled Kurimeo, last name Ahau. That's his channel. And this is out of the part 3. This is a section from his part 3 video of corn, mysterious origins of maize and prehistory, cradle of civilization. So here we go.
Himself, so I'm just playing, man. He's a biologist, I believe. He is.
$3 for 6.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great day. This is an everyday scene, but it's actually pretty amazing. We've taken dozens of wild plants and transformed them into useful crops through the process of domestication. Humans have carefully bred these plants for generations to make them bigger, sweeter, more colorful, and it's hard to find a plant that we've transformed more completely than this one, maize. Here in the US, most of us call it corn, and we eat a lot of it. There's cornbread, corn chips, corn cereal. If you look a little deeper, you'll find cornstarch and corn syrup in hundreds of products. And a lot of the meat we eat comes from animals fed a corn-based diet. So maize is all around us, but for a long time, the origin of maize was a mystery. The ancestors of wheat pretty much look like wheat. The precursors of apples basically look like apples, but there's nothing in nature today that looks like this. This is the story of an unexpected collaboration. The story of geneticists and archaeologists working together to discover where maize really came from. Christopher Columbus's crew were the first Europeans to see maize. But by the time Columbus arrived, people all over the Americas had been growing maize for thousands of years. Archaeological evidence from around the world reveals that starting around 10,000 years ago, humans were beginning to live in larger settlements and to manipulate wild plant and animal species to better suit their needs. In the case of plants, this process of domestication led to plants that we call crops, like wheat, apples, and potatoes. And in most cases, the wild relatives of these crops can still be found in nature. But you can't find anything that looks like maize growing in the wild today. And even the earliest fossil ears of maize, which are more than 6,000 years old, already look essentially like today's crop. So where did maize come from? Many scientists thought that the ancestor of maize must be extinct. But a brilliant young geneticist discovered something that made him think that the ancestor of maize was right in front of us. His name was George Beadle. Beadle was studying a grass from Central America called teosinte. He found that teosinte's chromosomes looked nearly identical to those of maize. He also showed that teosinte and maize could produce fertile hybrid offspring, meaning that they must be closely related. Beadle concluded that teosinte was likely the ancestor of maize. But many botanists doubted the young scientist's claims. Maize expert Dr. John Dobley at the University of Wisconsin told me why.
So Neil, the reason I wanted to bring you out here is to show you just how different corn and teosinte are.
Yeah.
This is a teosinte plant, and it doesn't look anything like a typical corn plant.
No.
And you can start by just looking down at the base. It just branches a lot, so it is a very bushy creature, and quite different from a corn plant, such as you see here, where there's just a single main stalk, no branches, except for these two short branches, each of which has an ear on it.
The dramatic difference in branching between teosinte and maize is just the beginning. When you look at an ear of corn, you can see hundreds of kernels exposed on the cob. But teosinte is different. Each ear only has a handful of kernels, each enclosed in a fruit case that's so hard you might crack a tooth if you tried to eat it. It was no wonder that botanists doubted that teosinte could be the ancestor of maize. Beadle moved on to other questions in genetics, which ultimately earned him the Nobel Prize. But the origin of maize continued to intrigue him. And after his retirement, he returned to that question. To silence the skeptics, Beadle had to show how humans could have transformed this into this. So after his retirement, he launched one of the biggest breeding experiments in history to settle that question once and for all. For Beadle, the key question was how many genes control the differences between maize and teosinte. If that number were small, then it wouldn't have been too hard for early humans to transform teosinte into maize.
He began by crossbreeding maize with teosinte. In most plants and animals, individuals inherit 2 copies of each gene, one from each parent. So the offspring from this first generation cross between teosinte and maize, the F1 generation, would have 1 copy of each gene from teosinte and 1 from maize. These F1 plants would then be crossed with one another to produce the F2 generation. This is where things get interesting. If only 1 gene differs between teosinte and maize, then 1 in 4 of the F2 plants should look just like maize, and 1 in 4 ought to look like teosinte. If 2 genes are at work, this number drops to 1 in 16. For 3 genes, it's 1 in 64, and so on.
If more than 3 genes were involved, Beetle was going to need a lot of plants. He decided to grow 50,000 F2 plants for his experiment.
And what did he find? About 1 in 500 plants looked identical to teosinte, and a similar number looked just like maize. That number suggested that changes in just 4 or 5 genes were responsible for all the major differences between the 2 plants.
So George Beetle was right. The real ancestor of maize was teosinte, and it was right in front of us all along.
Many varieties of teosinte grow throughout Mexico and Central America, and humans have lived there for thousands of years. So where and when did they first transform teosinte into maize? Dobley's team set out to find the answer. They collected DNA samples from different teosinte varieties throughout Mexico to compare their DNA sequences to those of modern maize. The more closely related 2 groups of organisms are, the more similar their DNA sequences will be.
Hijack, I mean, that's no good. Trying to compare the animals to apes. We did not come from apes.
DNA sequences most similar to maize.
We've actually figured out that all of modern corn traces back to one type of teosinte in the southwestern part of Mexico, near a river called the Balsas River.
The relatively small number of DNA sequence differences between maize and the Balsas River teosinte yielded another critical piece of information.
We can take teosinte in corn and ask how many mutations do they differ by, and then knowing the rate at which mutations occur, make a prediction about how long ago their paths separated.
The more differences in the DNA of 2 groups of organisms, the longer it's been since their ancestors were all one species.
Our estimate is that the original domestication of corn would have taken place sometime around 9,000 years ago.
Based on genetics, Dobley's team had come up with a hypothesis about where and when maize was domesticated. But the ultimate test would require independent evidence from outside the field of genetics. I visited Dr. Dolores Paperna at the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute in Panama to see that evidence.
So you're an archaeologist. What did you think when this geneticist from Wisconsin analyzing DNA said, here's where we need to look for the earliest evidence of maize domestication?
Teosinte is distributed all over Mexico, highlands, lowlands, it gets down into Nicaragua. So the question for archaeologists was, where do we go? And Dr. Dobley's work told us exactly where to go.
9,000 years ago, people living in this area were taking shelter and preparing food in caves and rock shelters.
When we went to the Central Balsas Valley, one of the things we did is to ask local people, do you know of any caves or rock shelters? And that's how we found the Xihuatoshta shelter.
So people took shelter there, they slept there, they probably ate there.
They ate there, they cooked their food there.
But finding evidence of ancient maize wouldn't be easy. In the tropical environment of ancient Mexico, the cobs and kernels would typically be scavenged or decomposed. But Dr. Paperno wasn't looking for such obvious evidence.
These were the earliest plant processing tools. We call them plant grinding stones, so that's what they were used for, and these are no more than river cobbles.
Dr. Paperno showed me how ancient people used these stone tools to grind up maize and other crops. In the process, tiny plant pieces might be deposited on the tool's surface, leaving behind microfossils.
So we found hundreds of these microfossils right on the grind surface of the stone. And like the seeds, they're very highly diagnostic.
So even with these microscopic traces, you can tell the difference between corn and teosinte.
Yes, we can tell the difference.
Finding maize microfossils on the grinding tools meant that the humans living in the Xihuatoxtla shelter were processing maize for food. But how long ago? Archaeologists can calculate the age of ancient remains using radiocarbon dating, but microfossils are too small to date using this method. So Dr. Paperno used charcoal found in the same sediment layer as the grinding stones to determine the age of the microfossils.
And so what was the oldest date of these maize remains?
It's very interesting how well the genetic and archaeological data fit together. The oldest charcoal date we received back was about 8,700 years ago.
That date coincided almost perfectly with the date Dr. Dobley predicted from the genetic evidence. So nearly 9,000 years ago, humans had already produced an early version of maize. But how was teosinte transformed into maize? Back in Dr. Dobley's lab in Wisconsin, I learned about the genetic changes involved.
Here we go, genetic changes.
One of the main
This is where it gets good, baby.
teosinte and maize is that the teosinte seeds are encased in this really hard fruit case that makes it really difficult to eat. So clearly that's something that had to change.
That's right, and the remarkable thing is that having a fruit case versus not having a fruit case is basically controlled by a single gene.
A single gene.
A single gene.
To test this gene's function, Dr. Dobley's team did a clever experiment. They carefully crossbred maize and teosinte to introduce the maize version of the fruitcase gene into teosinte plants. When they did that, the teosinte kernels, which are normally enclosed in a hard fruitcase, became partially exposed, almost like little corn kernels. When they did the opposite, putting the teosinte fruitcase gene into maize plants, the fruitcase became larger and started to cover up the maize kernels, similar to teosinte.
One gene makes a pretty dramatic change.
So another really obvious difference between teosinte and corn is that teosinte produces dozens of these little tiny ears on a plant that branches a lot, and corn just produces a couple of ears on a plant that hardly branches at all. So what's going on there?
There is one gene that we've identified that plays a central role in that process, and you call it the branching gene.
Dr. Dobley explained how putting the teosinte version of the branching gene into maize made the maize plants more branched, like teosinte. And putting the maize version of the gene into teosinte made the teosinte plants less branched. Dr. Dobley has shown that the fruitcase gene, the branching gene, and just a few others, a small number of genes, just as George Beadle predicted, were responsible for setting in motion all the major differences between maize and teosinte. But how could so few genes cause such huge changes? Why were these genes so powerful?
They both belong to a special class of genes called regulatory genes. And these are genes that directly regulate the activities of other genes.
God
And
genes.
so when we move the teosinte version of one of these genes into a corn plant or vice versa, we're actually changing more than just that one gene.
That's right, they can turn other genes on and off. You could think of these genes as something like the conductor of an orchestra. And if if you would take the conductor from one orchestra and give that orchestra, say, a new conductor,
Just like we did moving some genes from teosinte
Right.
to A's or vice versa.
right, and you could get a very different quality of music, even though all of the musicians and all the instruments remain the same.
These regulatory genes probably influence the activity of hundreds of other genes, which explains how mutations in just a few regulatory genes could dramatically transform teosinte. But there was still one thing I couldn't figure out.
So I understand now how teosinte was transformed into maize, but the thing that's still bothering me is that teosinte really doesn't seem like a very good crop. So why would anybody have started growing it in the first place?
Well, George Beadle actually had an idea about that question,
Okay.
and his idea was that they might have used it like popcorn. And Beadle did an experiment to test his hypothesis that they used it like popcorn, and we can do that same experiment here today.
All right, let's do it.
Y'all gonna love this.
Remember, the nutritious kernels of teosinte are trapped inside hard fruit cases. But if they popped, like maize kernels, that could be one way the earliest farmers could have eaten teosinte. In Dr. Dobley's lab, we were about to find out whether the ancestor of maize could pop.
Oh, that was a good one. Okay, so we've got some pop teosinte here. And I'm gonna actually give this a try.
That looks good to me.
And that's basically just like popcorn.
Tastes like popcorn.
Tastes like popcorn. There you go. So you see how the scientists have been able to track the origin of corn to the Americas and how, and found its ancestor, and they determined that it was somehow genetically modified to get to the corn that we see today. So at some point, some great science, some ancient knowledge, the creator, some divine knowledge and science allowed us to have the fruits and vegetables we have today. And even though they know that this was genetically altered, they still don't know how or who. But, all the ancient stories we're going to start seeing, they give credit to the gods. And we read that earlier as well. If you guys remember in Tibet, it's the first agricultural plant that was given to the people by the gods, right? So we're going to start seeing this. And again, today, scientists still don't know how it was altered, this plant. There's a lot of articles you can read online about this. This one right here says maize, or corn, as it is called in the United States. It is one of the 3 cereal grains upon which world civilizations were founded. It
World
has been described as
civilizations.
having a passport without a birth certificate. Wilkes and Goodman, 1996. Because although it is one of the most widely grown food crops around the globe today, its precise parentage has been controversial. Alright, so they don't know how it was made. Great civilizations need a great asset. Ancient Egypt had the Nile, right? We're starting to connect that with Mississippi River, So, do the research. The Mayans had maize, or corn as others call it. So maize is accepted as man's first and perhaps his greatest feat of genetic engineering. Okay, what we just talked about.
All right, bring you guys back on in. All right, let me get these other platforms straight so we can start. All right. So, what we see, and just that brief one, because I know everybody is in the midst of doing whatever they're gonna do tonight. So I wanted to make sure that I really got somebody to explain to you how this corn was changed, and that where it actually came from, and that scientists have gone through extensive studies, as you can see, to find out where corn came from, where it originated from. And as you see, they were doing it and using it 9,000 years ago. That corn in ancient cultures, Tibetan culture, the Tibetans said that this was a crop that was given to them by God. In the Egyptian culture, Osiris, the great god of the Egyptians, was known as the corn god. Yeah, the corn god. So and let's not forget about Asia, right? They call it the royal crop because it was given to them, it was only given to the emperors. Now, I'm saying all that to establish that how this crop was revered. Before we had iPads, or we had Mercedes-Benz, or we had NFL championships, right? Playoffs and stuff, right? Before we had that, the greatest thing known to man was the ability to eat. And corn was the superstar. Corn was the beginning. We don't have to hunt anymore, so we don't see the importance of how important it is to be able to mash up corn and make a porridge that lasts. That was the sustaining meal, like oatmeal. That was the sustaining meal. It's what they made bread with. Yeah. It's the manna they mixed with, right? Corn is the building block, as the video said, of civilizations. Absolutely have to have a food source. Corn was that food source. Now, when we look at corn in its present day, it's not the same crop that God gave us. It has been genetically modified. Yes. And hello to everybody in the building. See if I can get my brother Oba back on this line with us, because he is out there in Connecticut. Let me see if we can bring him on. I hope that works out. So the point that we're making right now is that we have shown, and actually I will go back to that, but we have in Joshua and Deuteronomy and in Psalms and in Isaiah, in Matthew, you'll find these scriptures about corn. So what are we saying? What is all this information about corn and where it comes from? Okay, with the building blocks of civilizations. Well, the civilizations that we've been given to look up to actually looked up to us. That's the point. We gave them the sustaining crop for life, as corn was found in the Americas first. I don't think that, I'm sure some intellectuals like to say that maybe it left from New Mexico and went directly to Africa. The Asia is supposed to have an older culture than Africa, right? More civilized, a civilized culture, right? So they had it first. Even when you look in history, they try to say that corn came from the East first, that corn came from Asia and then went to Egypt. Well, they needed to say that because that's how they set the lies up in history. They gotta wrap it all in. But through science and through through scriptures, it says that in Genesis that Egypt was saved through corn, through Joseph. If Joseph could not read the Pharaoh's dream to know there was going to be 7 years of drought, then to come to America, and if you search in the Grand Canyon, they have found gold plaques with Egyptian writing and Joseph as the Pharaoh mining not just corn here, but many things here. That connects. We have archaeologists archaeologists have found in the Grand Canyon gold plates that's been authenticated that have the name of Joseph on it. In the Bible, in the words, it says that he saved them with corn. Corn is indigenous to America. I'm going to wait for it. When we say, and tonight is what is a Hebrew, right? This is our Monday night on Hebrew State of Being. When we say what is a Hebrew, when we say we are God's people, that's the easiest, clearest definition of what a Hebrew is, God's children. The language of ancient Hebrew, not the Yiddish influenced today's Jewish language. Black Paleo Hebrew is God's language. We've all, or I hope you've heard of the story of Nimrod, which is who they celebrated this past December 25th because it is actually his birthday. Now, Nimrod tried to build the Tower of Babel. That's when all men spoke the same language. Have you ever asked what that language was? It surely was not English. Was it a Celtic language? It was, nope, Jerusalem. That's on the tectonic plate of Africa, so that's Africa, so no. Had to be some black people because it was Africa. Jerusalem, black, tectonic plate of Africa, equator. All of it matches to the type of people that would have been in that region at that time. When God struck down the Tower of Babel, he also broke their languages so that they could not speak the same language, but his people kept the language. They may not have told you that in church or in Bible study. See, the Hebrew language is not just a language of a people, it's the language of a people of God's chosen people, the Yahudim. And his people, he gave a crop, and that crop was corn. Don't believe what I'm saying. The Tibetans said that it was the crops of God. The Asians say that it was that's the royal crop. Egyptians, it saved them. They named their god after the corn. Osiris, look it up. He's the corn god. Not also the sun. You know, he has several things that he likes to choose from. So if all these people are making gods and saying that their culture began off of this corn, and corn does not grow wild, it had to be taught, it had to be shown how to toil the sand and how to plant and how to grow it, then that means that the people, the Yahudim, God's people, the people that own the plant, passed that on and taught them how to plant it because they would not know how and they would not be there. So now, we all heard Dr. Sebi say corn has no nutritional value, right? It had nutritional value back in the days, and to this day, the real corn is only grown in 2 places. They have genetically modified all corn on the face of the earth. It only grows naturally in its organic manner in 2 places in the world right now. Guatemala, wait for it, New Mexico, in North America. Oh, la dee da. Right? So we are looking at a crop that's been here for 9,000 years that you can only find now naturally with its natural nutrition that God put in it when he gave it to us. in 2 places. Guatemala, New Mexico. Now, what did they do to this corn now, right? Because Dr. Sebi said it doesn't have the genetically GMOs have nothing, right? So first, let's read off a couple of things. My brother Jordan, my brother Oba have put this together for us, along with my brother Zach. And also, I'm sure my brother Shane was in the building getting this information together. So, corn appears 102 times in the Bible, 96 times in the Old Testament alone. "96 times in the Old Testament. 96 times in the Old Testament. Corn, by the way, when it comes to Egypt and the pharaohs and how corn saved them, one would have to ask the question, or one would have to say that God's people, the slaves, brought it there, huh? This is what I'm getting at. When the slaves came to New Orleans, they brought a crop with them, stitched in their hair. It was called okra. Look it up. So those are the same people, Negroes. See, our transatlantic slave trade, the story that we get in school is a portion of that. It's a time period. But in that time period is part of a circle of slave trade. See, that circle of slave trade started in the Americas, then they moved them to Africa, then they brought them back over to the Americas. It's a full circle. The transatlantic part you know about, that's after the slaves had already been brought to Africa as indentured servants, as slaves, as many things. Facts. Out of the 360 crops of Africa, 320 of them are indigenous to North America, to America. Facts. So when we talk about Africa being the motherland, mother of what? Diamonds? Okay. Gold? Okay, maybe. I check by Zell when I talk about that gold, though, before I start putting everything on. Anyway, point being, all right, is that when you look at Africa and you look at it being the motherland, well, then America would have to be the father's land. I mean, just look at it. I mean, just think about it from that aspect. Like my brother Obad says, yes, Hebrews are directly connected to the agriculture and the architecture, and with even cornrows, right? The cornrows and hairstyles. When you look at the ancient Mexicans, they call, right? They had cornrows. Who can do that? But anyway, my point being, when we look at it and we say that Africa is the motherland was saved by the fatherland. Because 320 of its 360 crops of Africa comes from North America. Egypt was saved by corn. It's all through the hieroglyphics on their walls. And that came from America. But you could let them people tell you need to go back to Africa if you want to. I'm going to hold it down right here. Another little coinkydink. The largest lion known to man through antiquity came from North America. The jaguar, the black panther that everybody's on, it is indigenous to North America. The black spotted panther jaguar that is in Africa, that's a recessive gene to that leopard. Only in North America is the black gene of the panther dominant facts. When we are looking for who we are, we sometimes look back at the civil rights in the 60s, right? There's only been one type of people that has been through all the atrocities known to man in this written time, and that's Negroes, blacks, not Africans. It's a difference. No one claims a continent, they claim a tribe. No one claims a continent, they claim a tribe. So, when we look at who we are as a people and where the riches of the world comes from the people to the corn, to food, to the soil, to the richest place, it's the Americas, the Indies, known in antiquity as the third India. As we in the South like to say third coast, right? Just kind of funny how these things fall into place. But corn, before it was genetically altered, gave us all that we needed for our bodies and for our minds. So let's go into this. It is observed that by 700 BC, corn, maize, was a staple of diets for many southeastern Indians and Canadian Indians alike. 700 BC. We already proved that Washita Nation was the earliest people to North America. We ate corn. This delicious grain ranges from flint varieties to the ones used for textile dyes. You only thought corn was yellow? The colors are so beautiful to look at. You will find white pearls of corn to the ones colored purple to even black. See, the darker the color, the richer. See, the yellow is the genetically altered, right? It says, much like the Torah, corn is the most harvested grain and is compared to others. But this is the benefits. The organic corn maize health benefits includes supporting healthy eyes, preventing diverticular disease or testicular. I'm not sure if that's a misspelling. Preventing anemia, preventing cancer, source of fiber, supporting weight loss, and a source of gluten-free diet. Other benefits include source of energy for the body, helps manage diabetes, helps prevent hypertension, is a source of magnesium, and helps prevent Alzheimer's. That's what our corn did before it became genetically altered by our government. That's what corn used to do. See, when you move the corn out, you move the buffalo out, you move out all the things that people have that God put here for us, then all of a sudden we need fast food restaurants. We need pharmacies. We need these things because they're not naturally here anymore. When you wipe out the corn, then you need some medicine for your high blood pressure. You need medicine for your Alzheimer's. You need medicine for cancer. But the original plant that God put here, as you saw when the guys on the video that I showed you, they said the conductor gene. That's the God gene. They found the gene that affects all the other genes in corn that can make it do different things. They found that, and what did they do with it? Did they make those other genes be more nutritional? Did they make corn even more nutritional than what it was originally? No. They stripped all of its nutritional value. Wait, an economist may say, well, to add anything to the corn may have cost more and then corn wouldn't have been cost effective. Well, then leave it like it was. It seemed to have saved Asia. It seemed to have saved Egypt. It seemed to have saved the Tibetans. Why did we need to genetically alter corn? To produce more? Wait, it saved Asia. It saved Egypt. It saved, why did we, indigenous to this land. Why would we need to make more of it to feed everyone when it was feeding everyone already? Maybe that's just above my pay grade. That's above my understanding. But let's go further, right? See, organic corn, real organic corn, contains carotenoids, which is lutein and zeaxanthin. There are multiple studies that show the benefits of these for your eyes, so that we don't go blind and we can need all these glasses. But organic corn flour is a good option for naturally gluten-free, or better option than other grains that have been observed to help non-insulin dependent diabetes. So corn flour can help with the diabetes to take away having to use insulin. The organic kind is the best as it retains most of its nutrients and is free and harmful elements from pesticides. So natural corn didn't need pesticides. What? So does that debunk the argument that you had to do this genetically altered corn so that it was cheaper and we could feed more people? But no, you needed pesticide, you needed drugs, you needed pharmacy, you needed pesticides, you needed poisons. By the way, the etymology of pharmacy, please look it up tonight, guys. Look at Google. Go to your Google on your phone. Etymology of pharmacy. Just type it in. And the etymology of pharmacy is going to say witchcraft, sorcery, potions. It's going to say poisons. All right? So when they're putting the pesticides on this genetically modified grain that was fine by itself, then that becomes harmful to the body. But supposedly they're helping you, though. They're helping us. Organic corn contains phenolic and phytochemicals that help regulate blood pressure and prevents hypertension. There is also a good amount of vitamin B that is beneficial for the optimal functionality of your adrenal glands. Organic corn is studied the source of thiamine, which is an antioxidant that sharpens brain functions. It also helps synthesize acetylcholine, which in turn leads to improved memory. Wow. Tell me that's not God's plan. One plant of corn, one plant. One plant does this. Well, the organic kind. The real corn, before they genetically altered it. Before the government decided that, hey, we got a new thing. I know that thing that y'all growing that done saved civilizations across the waters, that done save the entire earth at some point in time. We're going to redo that because we're smart or because we're evil. You kill all the buffalo. You kill our crops. You replace our food with genetically modified organisms. Our bodies start to fail. You create pharmaceutical drugs that are potions and poisons to heal the poisonous food that you've given us, because in order to subdue us, you had to starve us. See, that's the way the Indians lost. See, they couldn't beat us, so they killed all of the buffalo, our food source. When you study war, that's one of the first tactics to cut off the food supply of your enemy. And that's what they did by killing our crops, killing the buffalo. Look it up in antiquity how big the mounds of buffalo skulls they had. Buffalo wasn't the new hottest thing that everybody had to eat across the world. They didn't kill a buffalo to feed their troops to fight us. They destroyed them, let them rot, so that we couldn't sustain ourselves and fight. So now the same corn that we feed on, the food, not just the corn, that we eat every day, that we think is healthy foods. Even the healthy foods are organically been altered so many years ago. They saying that crop now, because corn is organic. They'll say organic corn. Ain't a damn thing organic about that corn. Nothing. If you're not getting it from New Mexico, if you're not getting it from Guatemala, they're lying. If you ain't got no color in that corn ain't red, that corn ain't purple, that corn ain't blue, corn ain't red. I mean, come on, man. We'll bring all of this out and to have y'all understand that this has been part of colonialism. This is the only way they were able to take us out, and the way they still keeping us weak. They got ginkgo biloba now for to help you with your brain function, because they know that they're killing your brain. They know that you're slowing. We're the dumbest people in the world right now. Americans are the dumbest. Yeah. According to statistics, testing, aptitude, you know what I'm saying? We slow on everything. We used to be number one. Got fat and happy. No, we got drugged up. It's just starting to catch up to us. That's it. You know, on Wednesday night, we're going to get into some of this information that we have with the Spaniards and the colonialization and King Ferdinand and our boy King James, you know. Oh boy, King James. Little did you know, King James was the one that put together the money to come in, to start the 13 colonies. King James was the black man. King James was the Moor. King James came to subdue our people here. And yes, we do read from the scriptures. It is the only translation since we've been in captivity. You know, when people talk about, oh, you're using a white man's book, well, show me the black man's book. And I'll show you the black man's book that they didn't told you was a white man. Show me a book that's before our colonialization. Because at that point, any book, because you're reading a language that's not yours. So when you're real smart and you're being all intellectual and whatnot, every book that you read, anything in this English language, has been touched up and altered in its given in its approach to its story to you. Know that. You're supposed to eat the meat and spit out the bones, as the elders say. Eat that fish and spit the bones out. Yes, King James, who our holy scripture is written by, is the same language that is written in our slave codes of the 13 colonies. Him and his son, King Charles, set up colonies here. The first slavers. But you know what's before King James and before King James Version? God, the Torah, the 5 Bibles, and Moses. So that's why we're about source information. That's how we find out about this corn. That's how we find out what's the right words within the books of lies. And we pray. Tonight is such a devilish night. I'm so glad that y'all taking y'all time to stick in and listen to this message that we're giving tonight. You know, give all praises to the Most High and know that no matter how confused about the deception and the lies and where you are and where to go, the fact that you are tuned in right now means that you're searching and you're seeking his face. I surely hope you ain't seeking my face. You ain't come on here to seek mine, you dig? I hope you came to seek this information that I gave, because I ain't that good looking, you heard me? So I pray that you stay on your search, Whether the words I've given you puts you on the path, or have given you comfort on the path that you're already on, or giving you some enlightenment, or help you erase a little bit of the veil that they have put over all of our eyes, you know, you're on a path. Regardless of which one of those are, you are on the path of seeking his face. So please continue to seek his face and to seek his truth, and he will give that to you. He won't give it to you through anyone else. He's going to give you discernment on everything you hear from everyone else. You should trust no man, no woman. You want to learn how to trust yourself? That means you got to trust and talk to the God in you. You got to find your Most High inside you, because he's there. You just got to push back all of the distractions in this world and all of the things that stop us from connecting to our spiritual growth and self. So I know it's a lot going on tonight. I see everybody getting kicked off, coming back on. So all praises for for the people that's coming back on. But we will do a part 3 of the corn, because I have not gotten to all of the corn. No, I have not. But I really want y'all to get this understanding of this corn. So we're going to take baby steps with this corn, man. So all praises to the Most High for another night that he gave us the opportunity to kick it together. You heard me? Look, the Most High gave us another opportunity to talk about him. You safe in your house, you chilling. Yeah, if you're going to leave your house tonight, man, please pray. And wherever you find yourself tonight at midnight, please be on your knees. And let me tell you this, by the way. This whole concept of praying with your head down, this whole concept of being submissive, the Most High is here. Keep your hands open for your blessings. Look up to the sky and look down. Don't bow to no one. No bow. 2019, right? No bow. 219, baby. That means no bowing. We don't bow to no one, no man, no woman. You only bow to the Most High, and he ain't even asking you to, because he's bigger and he know it. He don't need you to bow. Open them hands up, open them eyes up, open that heart up, open that mind up. See that eye open. Most High loves y'all, man. Keep that positive vibration going. We got the victory. If you know and you've been walking with us, you know you got the victory right now. You ain't got to wait till later. The victory is now. When you accept it, it's yeah. Man, no bow, man. All praises. Yeah, Kiara in the building. Let me do a roll call. Even though Facebook told me everybody left, but Jan is in the building. My brother Oba is in the building. I'll try to bring him back. Jan Scott is in the building. Mia in the building. Terrence in the building. Shay, mommy, I like that. Big Chief in the building. Bodine, yes. Robert Pack in the building. Alex, my brother from junior high yeah, man. Love you, my brother. Jennifer's in the building. Hey, Big Chief $4, yes. All right, Tyria Youngblood in the building tonight. There you go, my brother made it to the end.
My brother, tonight was so lit, man. I hope everybody really gained a lot from it. Even moving backwards from the King James back to the corn. Everybody's gathering the little bits and pieces, the kernels that are being left behind, man. This is deep. This is deep. Where you from?
You know?
Who are you?
Who are you? Where you from and who are you? Black in the building. And finish the last little. Cynthia in the building. Erica in the building. Cynthia, Donna. Ajane. I got to not pronounce it right that time. Ajane, Fruits of Labor. My boy Kilmo, Trip in the building. Eugene. Kendall, I hope you still in there. I hope Kendall heard the whole thing, man. Candace in the building. Amber, yes. Makia, how you doing? Michaela. And Evelyn, oh, that's our soldier. Evelyn from day one. Keith in the building, yes. Richard, yes, that's everybody. So, you know, before we get out of here, let's talk about that. Chris, yeah, my man Chris just tuned in. Let's talk about that for a second before we get off, man. I dropped a little nugget about the King James. You know, I was watching Dane Calloway today, right?
That's serious information right there.
I was watching Dane Calloway today, and the Most High gave me a connection. 909, all praises, you know. But he was saying that if you watch Dan Calloway, he does not get into any kind of scriptures, any kind of spiritual thing. That's not what Dane is. Dane is strictly on the facts, on the books, and proving the lies, right? I appreciate that. So Dane said that he was going through the colonies, the registering of the colonies and the first ones that came in. And he was saying that the reason why people think Jamestown is the first one is because it was actually called James City. Before it was Jamestown, they had one a little further north. I think it was
James City?
James City. And he said the reason why people don't know about it, he said either like, for some reason I'm thinking somewhere with a P up further north. I don't think it was Connecticut. But anyway, somewhere with a P. But anyway,
Not Pennsylvania.
I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna get that info to you guys though. But he said that it was spelled Cittie or Citye. Now my brother and I read the King James a lot. We know that's how they spell city in the King James Bible, right? So that was the connection for me. I'm like, where else can you find the spelling of city and have the same meaning? And in our old English documentation of the slaves of King James, his Bible and his slave charters is written in the same language.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. You know, so for me, and I want everybody to be clear, this is the same as they used to tell you when you would go to church, you know, and somebody would say, you know, oh, I don't go there no more because the pastor not good. Or the pastor this, and they say, well, you go to church for the pastor? If you're going to church for the pastor, then you're missing the message, right? So if I'm looking at this book for King James to be my savior, then I'm going to have an issue with this book. Now, if I'm looking at this book for the information that pertains to me, and I'm doing extra study, I'm going above and beyond just this one book, and I'm correlating information, and I'm praying for discernment in that, and I'm grabbing books that aren't written in the King James language, and I'm grabbing Dead Sea Scrolls that correlates or goes against this information. So we use the King James because it is the closest to the English version in which we speak in this present day, that it can be translated to you what the words were.
Wow. You never think that King James is so connected to this land or this territory, you know? So people just associate this with like some old English white guy.
King James was black. More.
Ooh.
And King Charles. 4 kings came together to bring the English house to here, the House of London, to the Americas. And it was 4 more. It was Charles, I'm going to get the other names, but Charles, King, and James, and 2 other ones. Charlemagne, and may not have been Charlemagne, but and it was another one. I think it was Charlemagne, and one other. So these 4 came together to embark upon the new world. Now, you know, we want to go into schematics. You know, they came here originally to get tobacco and to corn and the crops. That then in turn to slave labor. So when King James and them got kicked out and Isabella took over, right? Then all things changed. Then what their colonies that they set up to be got turned into slave colonies. Yeah. See, that goes back to what we explained about how Christopher Columbus got here in the first place. See, Christopher Columbus didn't find a new world. Christopher Columbus was on a recon mission for Queen Isabella to get resources from their new territory. The Moors, this was Morocco. That's why you have these Moors running around town saying that America had a treaty with the Moroccan government or to start the colonies. They're true because King James and them were Moors and they ruled Morocco. So, yes, they did. So when Isabella kicked them out and Ferdinand and the Moors lost and it became the end of the Dark Ages, the land that they had been coming back and forth to, the Americas, now was under new rule because the Spanish had taken over. So when Columbus came here, he was coming to look and see what he was going to give to Queen Isabella and Ferdinand in the new lands. And he said, forget crops and agriculture. We got black crops, baby. And there you go. Slave trade is on and popping.
Yes, indeed. Wow. And the people have been connected to all those products that go along with it.
Oh, yes.
It's in our DNA. It's in our DNA, all the slave crops.
Because
The
what?
world with us.
We were the first crop. Wall Street, as you already brought out, my brother, we were the first crops to be sold on the Wall Street. Wall Street was a slave post, right?
We were the first stocks on Wall Street. Yep.
And we're still being sold on Wall Street to this day through our melon. Melon is traded on right now and it costs more than gold. Yeah, your melon, you know, that pigmentation, the thing that gives you the hue, right? One would say it's almost,
Life insurance.
Life insurance, you dig? So,
No, that's because of us started insuring slave ships.
so we just wanted to drop some information tonight. I mean, I wish people would ask questions, anybody had any questions about the corn, but, we're gonna finish out for the night. It's the howls out tonight, the gunshots are out, the spirits are banging in Holly Grove tonight. So I'm gonna be prayed up. I'm gonna say no. About to be.
Brother, I'm gonna send you prayers.
Thank you, my brother. I'm gonna need all of them, my brother. Hold up, cause my screen is. Yeah, there you go. My screen was trying to go down, and it's perfect timing. My battery is getting low, so I think that's the cue to let it go for the night. But y'all be back on Wednesday, where we're gonna get into part 3 of this corn. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the nutritional value of it. We're gonna go into this whole thing about the illegal beginning of America and the Negro slaves. We're gonna go into some books. We're gonna do. We're gonna got some dates. We're gonna talk about the first 4 inhabitants of Americas, which were the Mongolians. Well, let's say the first one, which were us, the Indians, Shemitic people, the Hemetics, which were the Africans from Africa. The third were the Mongolians, and the fourth were the Gamerians, the giants. Right? Those were the 4 inhabitants on North America before it became North America. And we're going to break down those people. We're going to go back into our Wisdom of Solomon. I know I didn't get into it tonight, but we're going to get into the Wisdom of Solomon again. And we got a lot to go here, man. I'm going to introduce y'all to Mr. Gunter as well with the corn. So we got a little bit more to go on the corn. Then we're going to go into the switch over, the King James, the colonization, the beginning of what America was as it switched over to the present day America. So, all praises. Go check out some corn. And know that you are in the greatest place you can be in. You can be in North America, knowing that the Most High has provided this place and provided you on this space and place, that you ain't got to go nowhere but right here and open up your third eye You got anything you want to say, my brother?
My brother, everything has been said tonight. You know, like we are just in a place where we're just overstanding and not just going with the status quo and what you've been told this whole time. Like it's right in front of you. And once it's in front of you, are you gonna sit there and argue it? As long as you get deeper, I would.
You know,
not just argue it for the sake of arguing it. You know, I just really hope that after tonight, folks really go ahead and look at the history of corn. Look how many times corn is in scripture. Just like really make those connections for yourself and know that you are connected to these stories. Like,
yes,
you are
yes.
rooted in this. It's time for these tribes to come together. You know, the tribes are connected to their agriculture. So
Yes, we
thank
are.
you for that knowledge.
We are the Indians. Don't get it confused. We say Indians, you know, and just to set ourselves apart, we spell it with an E because we are of the earth. We're of the Most High's Mother Earth.
Yes, love that.
Oh, praises. We will see y'all Wednesday. Shalom. Let me hit this off right quick. I've been getting this ready for y'all all day, so I'm going to say it right. Yahweh, Bahashem HaMashiach, Yahamashah, Barakatah.
Yes.
That's what it is. That means all praises to the Most High and His only begotten Son. I'll say it again. Yahweh, Bahashem HaMashiach, Yahawashah, Barakatah. There it is. All praises. We'll talk to y'all soon.